Well, we've talked a lot on this program about the competition for labor out there, and it even goes all the way up to the C-suite. Jamie Dimon yesterday awarded a special stock retention bonus by JPMorgan. Now, he must hold on to these shares granted to him, 1.5 million shares, granted to him by the firm. They are not exercisable for at least 5 years. The grant was at yesterday's closing price, $148.73. And the shares cannot be exercised for an additional 5 years. So he can exercise the grant in 5, then he can sell the shares 5 after that. So according to the Financial Times, source familiar tells them that the internal modeling from JPMorgan suggests this will be a $50 million stock award to Jamie Dimon, but it would not actually turn into that money for at least 10 years. But I think, Julie, always interesting to see executives continuing to be incentivized to stay at their firm. Jamie Dimon, of course, famously longest-serving bank CEO. And I think his presence at JPMorgan, his presence, frankly, as, the spokesperson of a sort for American business continues to be an important one, and kind of signaling here that he's likely to stick around for quite a bit longer in that role at JPMorgan, and then, by extension, in the broader business community.
Yeah, just a couple of thoughts here. When you say he's longest serving CEO, he's been there for 16 years as CEO. During that time, the stock is up nearly 300%. That compares with only 18% or so for the KBW banking index and under 50% for the XLF, the broader financial ETF. So just to give you an idea of what shareholders have come to expect from Dimon. And of course, he is viewed as sort of a best-in-class CEO. He's 65 years old, by the way. So if he does stick around by the time he retires to take advantage of that money, he'll be quite a bit older, right? And something else to consider, of course, is that he has had a couple of health scares. He had a bout of throat cancer, then he had to have emergency heart surgery. So that's something to keep in mind as well. You guys, one tiny note that I noticed when it came to the awarding of this stock option grant, that he will still be eligible for it if he leaves the job for an unelected or elected government position. That's something that has been whispered about as a possibility for him for some years as well.
Well, good for JPMorgan here, locking up its main guy. You can't see Jamie Dimon going off and trying to correct Wells Fargo here. So they're keeping their guy here, as they should. I mean, he's driven tremendous shareholder value. But I will mention this. So you had that leadership shakeup at JPMorgan several months ago, put several potential successors in line. But to what extent does this perhaps send a signal to those potential successors that Jamie Dimon is unlikely going anywhere anytime soon? Do you want to stay in this position? Do you want to try to go out there and launch your own hedge fund? Do you want to go to try to lead another bank? I think those questions might eventually start to swirl yet again. JPMorgan has lost a good number of executive talents through the years because Jamie Dimon has stayed atop the company for so long.
Yeah, and Julie, it's a good catch in there that if we see Treasury Secretary Dimon, for instance, that this award wouldn't be clawed back in that instance. It's also, possible that he doesn't exercise the option and they just, it goes unfilled, right? This is a special grant for a future point in time at which he exercises, and then of time after that, he's actually eligible to sell it, and then, of course, would have to deal with the tax implications on that sale, so on and so forth. I mean, it's not just like, they gave Jamie Dimon $50 million or whatever. Like, this is a very long-term, situation for him. But I think it also just speaks to your point, Sozzi, a little bit about what's the future of this bank and what's the future of the banking industry, right? Because I think it's an industry that has been obviously shaken up over the last decade from regulatory reasons. Now we see additional kind of neobanks, fintech competitors coming in, and there are questions about what is a bank? What does a bank want to be as it matures? Do you want to have it be led by kind of a strategy type, which really Dimon is? Do you want it to be an IB type, where you see that direction happening at Goldman, but that was a big change from the trader type? Lloyd Blankfein really came from Aaron, and so it's just a lot of questions, I think, about who leads any of these firms going forward. And I think JPMorgan maybe just making life easier on itself, that they can count even more than they already could on Dimon's leadership.
No, it's a great point, Myles. I think what you're seeing is that the future of the banks, you probably will need a strategist, someone who understands the bigger picture. You have Jamie Dimon, you have Jane Fraser at Citigroup that I would say falls into that strategist level, and I think Wall Street has spoken.
Guys, one more comment regarding what you were saying, Myles, about whether this award gets awarded or not. I just Google at least tells me Jamie Dimon's worth $1.8 billion. So if he gets another $50 million, give or take, is that enough of a motivator for someone like him who already has that kind of wealth?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you would know more than us, right?
Yeah.
As we established during yesterday's. Look, I mean, maybe this is the space grant. Like in 10 years, so he exercises in 5, sells them in 5, then retires, then takes this pool of money and gets on a Blue Origin flight. Maybe with you, Julie, and Mark and Jeff and hopefully Wally's still around kicking it for another flight.
We have a group text actually going about that.
Yeah, I'm sure texts are just lighting up now, asking which flight you'd like to be on. I know Sozzi, of course, still on the waiting list, unfortunately for him.